Hey everybody, it's Jack and Ollie here from Be Mobile Physiotherapy, and today in our education segment we wanted to tackle a really good question, and that is, what type of exercise is best for older adults? Now, before we go into it, we would say that all exercise is good as long as it gets you out there and gets you moving. And secondly, that your exercise should be specific to your goals. So, for example, if you want to get better at running, you should probably slowly progress your running and do more of that. Or if you want to be really good at tennis, you should probably play more tennis. However, we think strength training or resistance training is the best overall type of exercise, which gives you the best health benefits as you get older. So, Ollie, what health benefits does strength training give us?
Okay, so in a lot of our clients, we see a couple of key themes. So weakness, loss of muscle mass, and loss of muscle tissue quality, okay? And often you hear this term called sarcopenia, where in older adults, we see this decline in muscle tissue to the point where it becomes pathological, okay? So strength or resistance training is the number one way to address this issue of sarcopenia. So it increases your muscle mass and your muscle size, and your muscle quality, and increases your muscle strength, okay? Now, the other big reason is for bone mineral density. We know that heavy resistance training is great for maintaining and laying down new bone in an older population, okay? And the third point that we'll touch on here, a lot of people don't realize this, but resistance training is really good for stimulating your cardiovascular system to get a lot of those gains in regards to your cardiovascular health and fitness.
Yeah, and now we would say that doing cardiovascular training such as swimming, running, bike riding, whatever you like to do, hiking in the bush, is very, very necessary if you want to get the best results. So combining them is going to be a really good thing to do. However, if we had to pick one, we would probably say strength training for the moment is the best thing to do. Now, another point would be that strength training or resistance training is really time efficient. So if you were doing long, slow duration cardio, you might be out riding a bike for 2 hours. And whilst we think that's awesome, if you wanted your best bang for buck, we would say strength training can be done in a matter of 30 to 45 minutes, and you can hit a lot of big muscle groups and get some really good functional gains from that. So a lot of the guidelines say minimum 2 to 3 strength training sessions a week, and all you have to be doing, as we said, is between that 30 and 60 minutes of strength training, as long as you're hitting those major muscle groups and big movements like squatting, picking things up from the floor and pushing things overhead.
Of course, you always need to be working at a high enough intensity to stimulate yourself and challenge yourself and make the body adapt and give us those benefits in regards to our health and performance.
Absolutely. I think the next point would be that strength training is really safe. Now, people often think the exact opposite, that it's dangerous because you're picking weights up off the floor. However, we would say that it's incredibly controlled. So with strength training, we have sets, reps, the amount of time you're doing the work for, the amount of weight you're lifting. These are all very controlled variables, as opposed to running around on a tennis court where it's not as controlled because you're dealing with a ball which might bounce in every direction and you've got another person next to you which you might crash onto or you might roll your ankle. Now, we love tennis, we think it's a great thing, but it's not as controlled as something like strength training.
Absolutely, and it's not just us saying that because we're biased. There's a lot of evidence showing that strength, all forms of resistance training have a much lower injury rate than things like, as you said, tennis, soccer, those sorts of activities.
Absolutely. Now, we would say definitely getting some guidance around what you're doing is probably one of the best things, and that's why people like us help you get stronger and doing it in the right way and slowly and progressively overloading yourself to get stronger.
Yeah. Whilst there's a lot more things we could talk about regarding strength training, we're going to finish with one topic in particular, which is why strength training is so good for improving functional capacity. Now, in older adults, we often see a functional decline in daily activities as a result of a lack of strength. Okay, so Jack, can you just tell us a little bit about why resistance training is so good for improving our functional capacity?
Well, I think probably the best way to do that is to take an example of a daily movement that you might be doing. Let's take getting out of a chair, one of the most simple things that we do every day, but as you can see, maybe in some older adults you might know, or even yourself, that it does get harder and harder as you get older to get out of that chair, especially when the chair's a bit lower. So if you can train the squatting movement by holding weights, going up and down from a chair, or squatting up and down, you can improve that capacity over time so that next time you go to get out of a chair, it is a lot easier than it otherwise would have been. So that's what we mean by improving your functional capacity.
Perfect. And this applies to a lot of daily activities, things like picking things up in the garden, even getting up off the floor, getting out of the bathtub, all those sorts of things. Strength training is going to be really good for improving.
So whilst we think all exercise is good, and we definitely advocate for all forms of exercise, especially team sports and social things like that, we think if you had to choose one type of exercise for older adults in general, we would choose strength training for our clients. Because it improves your functional capacity, it definitely gives you cardiovascular benefits, and there's also now some evidence coming out to show it's really, really good for your brain. And then other things would be, it also improves your balance, okay, because it strengthens all the muscles which keep you upright. And what would be your last couple of points, Ollie?
So those things that I mentioned, they're really good for improving your strength and muscle tissue quality, which is really important. And of course, it's really safe, especially when supervised by someone who's experienced like ourselves.
Okay, so if you're doing strength training, you're probably doing the right thing. And if you're doing cardiovascular training and other sports as well, you're probably doing even better. So keep it all up, and we hope you enjoy the video.